On August 15, 1942, Soviet ZIS-3 batteries opened fire on advancing Panzer IV formations near Stalingrad from concealed positions within factory ruins, engaging targets at 400 meters through clouds of pulverized concrete dust. The 76.2mm shells penetrated up to 75mm of armor at 500 meters, sufficient to defeat the 50mm frontal plates of the Panzer IV, the backbone of German armored divisions, though heavier tanks like the Tiger I remained immune from the front. Each gun weighed 1,116 kilograms in firing position, less than one-quarter the mass of Germany's celebrated 88mm Flak 36, which required over 5,000 kilograms of steel and an 8 to 11-man crew to achieve its 120mm penetration at 1,000 meters. The Wehrmacht allocated only a limited number of its roughly 21,000 total Flak 36 production to the Eastern Front, with Luftwaffe air defense claiming priority over ground operations and North African campaigns, draining additional batteries from Army Group South's anti-tank reserves. If you're interested in how wars are actually decided by logistics, math, weapons, and doctrine, subscribe now, turn on notifications, and stay tuned for more in-depth World War II analysis. Let's continue. The ZIS-3's production economics exposed the mathematical trap constraining German industrial planning. Factory number 92 in Gorky, Zavod imeni Stalin, manufactured each gun in 650 tool hours, using 3,300 kilograms of ferrous metals and 30 kilograms of non-ferrous materials. The design originated in December 1940 when artillery engineer Vasily Grabin combined the light carriage from the 57mm ZIS-2 anti-tank gun with the 76.2mm barrel from the F-22 USV divisional gun, reducing overall weight by 420 kilograms compared to the USV predecessor. Grabin initiated mass production in December 1941 without waiting for official authorization, gambling that frontline demand would retroactively justify his breach of bureaucratic protocol. Gayu Anayop, proving grounds near Gorokovets, conducted acceptance trials between January 15 and February 5, 1942, testing the hydro-pneumatic recoil system in temperatures around -15 degrees Celsius across snow-covered terrain. The gun's 360mm ground clearance exceeded the F-22 USV's 330mm, preventing the carriage from bellying in deep snow during mobility trials on January 20th. Engineers documented a 750mm recoil length with plus or minus 50mm variance, and identified a leak in the return mechanism, requiring correction before full-scale production. The Red Army's official 5-day trial in February 1942 recorded a sustained rate of fire of 25 rounds per minute. A crew of 6 to 7 men could deliver the same volume as a much larger German battery. The 3,169mm barrel, with 2,570mm of rifling across 32 grooves, generated maximum chamber pressure of 2,314 kilograms per square centimeter and muzzle energy of 147.6 ton-meters, propelling high explosive shells to 13.3 kilometers maximum range. December 1941. Vasily Grabin stood in factory number 92, Zavod imeni Stalin, in Gorky, scanning production reports that quantified catastrophe. The Red Army had lost over 20,000 artillery pieces in 6 months of fighting, a hemorrhage of firepower that left entire divisions stripped of indirect fire support. The Wehrmacht controlled Soviet territory, producing 63% of pre-war coal, 68% of pig iron, and 58% of steel, the industrial sinews required to replace those guns. Grabin's factory faced evacuation orders as the front line approached 400 kilometers from Moscow. Yet peacetime design protocols demanded months of bureaucratic approval before any new weapon entered production. The chief designer made a calculated decision: begin manufacturing without authorization. The hybrid gun Grabin initiated violated every principle of Soviet military procurement. Conventional artillery design required hand-fitting of components, skilled machinists, filing metal until parts achieved tolerances measured in hundredths of millimeters. Grabin's unauthorized weapon demanded interchangeable parts manufactured to specifications loose enough that any barrel fit any carriage without adjustment. Factory number. My-92's tool room received orders to design dies and jigs that reduced machining operations by half. The F-22 USV consumed 1,070 tool hours per gun. Grabin's gamble targeted 650 hours, a 39% reduction in labor, while German Panzers advanced 80 kilometers per week. The bootleg production line represented industrial heresy. Grabin eliminated the USV's complex elevating mechanism, substituting a simpler system requiring just 7 kilograms of effort on the flywheel to traverse the barrel through 42 degrees of vertical arc, from -5 degrees depression to +37 degrees elevation. The hydro-pneumatic recoil system integrated over-under components in a single housing, fixing recoil length at 750 millimeters regardless of elevation angle, a design specification unproven in combat temperatures reaching -40 degrees Celsius across the Eastern Front. By January 1942, factory number. 92's assembly halls produced finished guns faster than official paperwork could document their existence. Grabin had manufactured roughly 150 weapons before GAU inspectors arrived at Gorokhovetsky, proving grounds on January 15th to test a gun the Red Army had never formally requested, authorized, or approved for service. The ZIS-3's baptism by fire came in Stalingrad's shattered industrial districts during August through November 1942, where its light combat weight and 1.37-meter height transformed Soviet defensive tactics. Crews of 6 manhandled the guns through collapsed factory floors and rubble-choked streets, positioning them in basements and behind broken brick walls where the 5-ton German 88mm flak guns could not follow. The split trail carriage's tubular legs, borrowed from the earlier ZIS 257mm design, allowed rapid emplacement in confined spaces measuring barely 1.6 meters wide. At ranges of 400 meters, standard for the urban fighting distances in Stalingrad's Barrikady and Krasny Oktyabr factories, the BR-350A armor-piercing round achieved up to 75 millimeters of penetration at 680 meters per second muzzle velocity, more than enough to defeat the 50mm frontal armor of Panzer IV AUSF F2 tanks supporting German infantry assaults. The double-baffled muzzle brake reduced recoil stress enough that the light carriage absorbed firing shocks without displacement, while the 54-degree traverse allowed crews to track targets across intersections without repositioning the entire weapon. Gun commanders required only 5 kilograms of effort on the traverse flywheel, enabling rapid engagement of multiple targets during the close-range armor duels occurring hourly in the factory districts. The tactical sequence repeated throughout the autumn. Soviet crews would fire 3 to 5 rounds from concealed positions, the 25 rounds per minute theoretical rate reduced by the need for observation between shots, then displace before German counter-battery fire arrived. At just over a ton, the gun could be rolled 50 meters through rubble by 8 men in under 3 minutes, a mobility the Wehrmacht's heavier anti-tank weapons could not match. On November 19, 1942, at 8:45 hours, this urban combat experience scaled to operational level. Operation Uranus commenced with ZIS-3 batteries positioned along the Don River, unlimbering in foggy dawn light, barrels aimed at Romanian Third Army positions northwest of Stalingrad. The guns fired high-explosive rounds at 13.29-kilometer maximum range, suppressing defensive positions while Soviet armor formations penetrated weakly held sectors. Within 4 days, by November 23rd, advancing ZIS-3 crews displaced forward after initial contact, trucks towing them across muddy autumn fields to new positions consolidating the encirclement perimeter that now trapped General Paulus's 6th Army inside a pocket containing roughly 290,000 Wehrmacht personnel. July 5, 1943, 0330. Ferdinand tank destroyers, 65 tons, 200mm frontal armor grind forward through morning mist toward the defensive belt system south of Kursk. Soviet crews have positioned over 20 anti-tank guns per kilometer across successive defensive belts, creating overlapping fire sectors that transform defensive doctrine into geometric inevitability. The divisional guns sit camouflaged in tree-line positions 500 meters from the axis of advance, barrels depressed to hide their low silhouettes behind earth berms and cut brush. Factory number 92 now produces over 100 guns daily, assembly lines operating under artificial lighting in 3 shifts. Some 20,000 ZIS-3s will emerge from production floors in 1943 alone. Germany manufactures between 3,000 and 4,000 88mm guns during the same period, a 5-to-1 production differential that translates directly into gun density at the tactical edge. The mathematical reality appears across the Kursk sectors as concentration, positions layered in depth, high traverse arcs creating interlocking kill zones designed to channel armor into fire sacks rather than stop it head-on. The Ferdinands advance into the first belt at 3:45, track links clanking through ground fog. Grabin's weapons remain silent, crews watching through panoramic periscopes as the tank destroyers pass the 1,000-meter mark. At 500 meters, battery commanders raise signal flags. The guns fire in volleys, muzzle brakes channeling propellant gases through multi-slotted baffles as BR-350A rounds exit barrels at 680 meters per second. The standard AP rounds cannot penetrate 200 millimeters of frontal armor, but the crews are not aiming at the front. They fire into flanks, tracks, and engine decking from oblique angles where 75 millimeters of penetration finds vulnerable surfaces. Yet the Ferdinands possess no hull machine guns, a design oversight that becomes tactical liability when flanking fire strikes from the 90-degree angles. The first Ferdinand sheds its right track, immobilized inside Soviet lines. The second takes hits to the rear deck, engine fire visible through vision ports. Crews manhandle the guns rearward using tubular trail legs as handling bars, repositioning without tractors. New positions, identical fire sectors. The rate of fire reaches 25 rounds per minute, shells arriving every 2.4 seconds from guns positioned in depth. Individual armor superiority, 200 millimeters of protection versus 75 millimeters of penetration, becomes irrelevant when probability compounds across multiple defensive belts. Or a single Ferdinand must survive dozens of separate engagement opportunities, many from flanking positions, to reach Soviet rear areas. The kill zone functions as mathematical sieve, filtering attacking forces through cumulative attrition rather than single-point defense. At Poniri Station, 17 kilometers north, crews dig gun pits into ridgelines, low silhouettes invisible until muzzle flash reveals position. The defensive system operates not through individual lethality but through density multiplied across depth. 650 tool hours of production cost creating strategic effect through numerical mass. The final accounting rendered a verdict in stamped steel and machining hours. The Soviet Union produced over 103,000 ZIS-3 guns during the war, consuming approximately 49 million man-hours of labor at roughly 475 hours per weapon by 1943 production standards. Germany manufactured around 21,000 88mm guns across all variants during the entire war, each requiring an estimated 2,750 man-hours. Had Soviet factories allocated the same 49 million man-hours to produce guns at German complexity levels, the mathematics delivered roughly 17,800 weapons, leaving Red Army divisions outgunned by over 85,000 pieces. Grabin's assembly innovations had generated not merely a gun, but a numerical avalanche. On June 23, 1944, at 0900 hours, ZS-3 batteries limbered up for Operation Bagration, 6-man crews towing guns 20 kilometers forward behind American Lend-Lease jeeps before unlimbering for direct fire against German fortifications. By July, batteries crossed Dnieper bridges under summer heat. as thousands of additional guns continued rolling from Uralmash and Plant number 92 production lines. August found ZIS-3s dug into sandy soil along the Vistula River line, engaging retreating Panzer IV's columns at ranges where standard AP penetration proved adequate against their frontal armor. January 1945 transformed tactical employment. Crews dragged guns by hand through Berlin rubble, positioning for point-blank shots into reinforced buildings. The semi-automatic vertical sliding breech mechanism sustained rapid bursts, cycling through HE, AP, and heat ammunition as infantry advanced through breached walls. April brought guns into streets adjacent to the Reichstag, where 76.2mm shells demolished masonry for the final assault. May 1945 saw ZIS-3 units stand down, guns parked in formation under overcast Berlin skies. Near the post-war diaspora scattered over 103,000 weapons across 6 continents. China received thousands during the 1950s, positioning guns in Korean War defensive lines, while the D-44 85mm gun replaced ZIS-3s in Soviet motor rifle divisions. Vietnamese forces camouflaged guns under jungle foliage throughout the 1960s for fire support missions. Austria purchased surplus weapons in 1955, maintaining 36 guns in active service until final retirement in 1991, 46 years after production ended. Syrian forces deployed ZIS-3s during conflicts through at least the mid-2000s, when photographic evidence confirmed the guns still in use. The same weapons that once fired through Stalingrad's pulverized concrete at advancing Panzers outlasted the state that created them, firing long after the hammer and sickle descended from Kremlin flagpoles. And if you enjoyed this story, hit subscribe for more World War II historical deep dives every week. Thanks for watching.